Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. A massive explosion at a chemical plant in Illinois. One first responder sustained minor injuries and residents are ordered to evacuate. Reports of hostile passengers aboard planes are on the rise, and some riders are taking the initiative to wrestle down the would-be hijackers. We talked to a couple who helped save the day on one Delta flight. Concerns surface over anti-racism education in a New Jersey private school. An English teacher resigns, saying it's hurting students. A county in Nevada joins a movement to defend the Constitution. The county says it will protect citizens' rights, even if it means defying state and federal law. A chemical plant exploded this morning in Rockton, Illinois. As a result, people in a 1-mile radius have been evacuated for several hours. The facility is the Chem tool manufacturing plant that makes lubricant. Firefighters have chosen to stop putting out the fire with water and instead let the product burn out completely. That's to avoid an environmental nightmare of water streams carrying contaminants into the nearby Rock River. One firefighter was injured during the response, but luckily the first responder only had minor injuries and was able to walk to the ambulance. The city's fire chief said there is no danger to air quality at ground level as of about noon. And the 70 employees at the plant were evacuated safely with no injuries, and the building is basically consumed by the blaze. And officials say it may take several days for the product to burn off fully. The evacuation order will remain for about another 10 hours, and residents are recommended to go to Stephen Mack Middle School. And President Biden wraps up his meetings with NATO before heading into talks with the EU tomorrow. This will be the first U.S.-EU summit since 2014. NTD's Steve Lance has the details.
President Biden is 6 days in on his first foreign trip. He had tea with the Queen of England over the weekend, and meetings with the G7 have officially wrapped up. Much of the talks with the G7 revolved around the threats coming from communist China. Today, the president began the NATO summit, where both Russia and China were priorities of concern.
We have new challenges, and we have Russia that is not acting in a way that is consistent with what we had hoped, and as well as China.
President Biden was asked by a reporter about his frequently used slogan that America is back, in the context that his foreign policy is radically different from the previous administration. But yet the Biden administration has kept Trump-era steel and aluminum tariffs in place on the European Union countries, to which Biden responded,
120 days, give me a break. Need time.
Biden faces a challenge when it comes to lifting these tariffs on the EU, as the U.S. steel industry has seen a boom recently, especially in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. Biden closed out his NATO meetings in Brussels, where he took questions about his upcoming meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
In a weekend interview, Vladimir Putin laughed at the suggestion that you had called him a killer. Is that still your belief, sir, that he is a killer?
Answer the first question. I'm laughing too.
In the wake of recent cyber attacks in the United States, it was no surprise that Russia and China dominated much of the conversation.
Russia and China are both seeking to drive a wedge in our transatlantic solidarity. We're seeing an increase in malicious cyber activity.
Tomorrow, the president is scheduled to meet with leaders of the EU, where some of those delicate topics, such as steel and aluminum tariffs, may come up. Then on Wednesday is the highly anticipated meeting with President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, before heading back to the U.S. after his 8-day trip in Europe. Steve Lance, NTD News, Washington, D.C.
2 Republican congressmen face a total of $20,000 in fines for allegedly violating a new security screening on Capitol Hill. Now, the 2 congressmen are suing over the fines, calling it an unequal enforcement of a rule that's only meant to make Republicans look like a threat. They say Democrats have violated the screening too, but haven't been fined. NTD's Melina Weiskup has more from Capitol Hill.
Two Republican congressmen are filing a lawsuit against the House Sergeant at Arms for enforcing a new rule that requires all members of the House to go through a security screening before meeting on the House floor. This was something that was implemented after the January 6th Capitol breach. But the reason why the representatives are filing the lawsuit is they say it's been unequally enforced among the parties.
It has been used numerous times to prevent Republican representatives from reaching the House floor in time to vote, thereby actually depriving millions of Americans of their elected representation in Congress.
Representative Clyde missed a vote after being held up by the screening process, and he isn't the only Republican that missed a vote. The lawsuit lists 5 other Republicans who missed votes due to screening, while Representatives Smucker and Fox were fined for skipping the screening. Representative Gov't tells NTD this new rule is not being applied to Democrats.
And there will be witnesses come forward and say they watched Democrats walk through, set off the magnetometer, and not be required to be wanded. And I don't know of any Republicans that have been allowed to just walk through and set off the magnetometer and not be required to come back.
The lawsuit lists 3 Democrats who set off the alarm but weren't asked by security to come back for a second check. And on one occasion, Speaker Nancy Pelosi herself didn't go through the screening at all and was not fined. No Democrats have faced fines so far. Representative Clyburn was fined, but he had his fine dropped by the Ethics Committee. Meanwhile, the Ethics Committee did not drop fines for Representatives Clyde and Gov't, who now may face thousands of dollars being stripped from their salaries unless the court rules in their favor.
They are varying the salaries of those members and thereby violating the text of the 27th Amendment.
The representatives say they believe enforcing this new rule is mainly about optics, pointing to a statement made by Capitol Police Chief who said that there was no intelligence showing that any Congress member posed a security threat to any other Congress member. They now want the court to deem this new rule as unconstitutional. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Despite talks of a fractured U.S. Supreme Court, the court's 9 justices have been issuing a string of unanimous rulings. One of the most recent decisions outlines potential reduced sentences for people charged with cocaine possession. NTD's Christina Kim brings us the details.
There's been a string of unanimous decisions from the nation's highest court, and Monday's decision was no different. The Supreme Court said a reduced sentence from the First Step Act doesn't apply to people like Tararik Terry, who has low-level crack cocaine offenses. This means these people can't get their prison sentences shortened. In 2008, Terry was caught with almost 4 grams of crack cocaine and was sentenced to 15.5 years in prison. That's partially because at the time, the law treated cases involving crack cocaine more harshly than possession of powder cocaine. 2 years later, Congress passed the Fair Sentencing Act, which reduced the disparity between crack cocaine and powder cocaine. And in 2018, Trump signed the First Step Act to allow some parts of the Fair Sentencing Act to be applied retroactively. But the law didn't clearly spell out the possibility of a reduced sentence for Terry's situation. It only laid out resentencing for people under Tier 1 or Tier 2. Tier 3 doesn't distinguish between crack and powder cocaine and doesn't trigger a minimum sentence. While the Biden administration argued that Terry's case qualified for a sentence reduction, on Monday, the courts overwhelmingly disagreed. That's because the law doesn't clearly say that he qualifies as a Tier 3 offender. In effect, this means that some offenders who are found with more crack cocaine could get a shorter sentence than some with less. But Justice Sotomayor says Congress has numerous tools to clarify or change the law on this issue. Terry has a few months left of his sentence. He's scheduled to be released in September. Christina Kim, NTD News.
Delta Airlines has seen its second hostile passenger this month try to forcibly take the plane down. Passengers successfully wrestled the attacker to the floor in both cases. NTD's Jason Perry spoke with a couple who quickly sprang into action on the first flight.
Stop this plane. Stop this plane.
On June 4th, Wesley and Tracy Campbell were sitting in the second row when a hostile man charged the cockpit and began wrestling with the male flight attendant. Tracy alerted Wesley, who was sleeping at the time, and got him to help the flight attendant restrain the attacker.
I throw my husband pretty much into the aisle. He gets on top of them. They sandwich him, shove him down. It happens so quickly. You don't know how you're going to react in a situation like that.
I was able to jump on there and help the flight steward get out from underneath him. and I didn't have anything to tie him up with. So my wife behind me was coaching me, and she was like, "Put your belt off, use that." So I started to use my belt on his wrists, but luckily a steward handed us some zip ties, which worked a lot better.
A few other men came to help, while others stayed seated. After they tied up the attacker's hands and feet, they dragged him to the rear of the plane, as far from the cockpit as possible. The Delta flight was en route from Los Angeles to Nashville, Tennessee. Following the incident, it rerouted for an emergency landing in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Wesley said after it was over, some men came up to him saying they wished they would have helped, but they didn't know what to do at the time. After the publicity of the flight, Wesley feels that people are now ready to act in similar situations. So when someone attempted to hijack another flight on June 11th, there were more than just a few people who got up to help. The flight from LA to Atlanta made an emergency landing in Oklahoma City, where the would-be hijacker was taken into custody.
So apparently they all got up, and the cat had to say, "Look, you can go back to your seat." Apparently half the plane got out of their seats, So I don't know if I'd want to be a terrorist or a plane hijacker, at least in the near future, because people are ready,
Since January, the U.S. Department of Transportation's Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, has received almost 3,000 reports of unruly behavior. Roughly 3/4 were passengers refusing to comply with the federal mask mandate. The FAA has a zero-tolerance policy against unruly and dangerous behavior by passengers. And for passengers who did not comply with the mask mandate, the FAA issued fines between $7,500 and $15,000. Jason Perry, NTD News.
An English teacher has resigned from a New Jersey school, saying its ideological anti-racism education is hurting students. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on her resignation.
Dwight Englewood School is transforming their pre-K through 12 campus on the basis of two words: anti-racism and equity. The New Jersey private school says this is to create a more inclusive, bias-free environment.
The reality is that fear and orthodoxy pervade the faculty.
Dana Stengel-Plow, a former English teacher at Dwight Englewood, recently resigned. In this video uploaded by Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism, she says the school's anti-racism and equity policy is actually hurting students.
But over the past few years, the school has embraced an ideology that is damaging to our students' intellectual and emotional growth. An ideology that requires students to see themselves not as individuals, but as representatives of either an oppressor or oppressed group.
Looking at the school's action plan, middle school students read books in 2020 like How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. This book defines racist policies as any measure that produces or sustains racial inequity between racial groups. By Kendi's definition, if one racial group is wealthier than another, like whites being wealthier than blacks, the policies that allowed this to happen are racist. A letter Stengel-Plow says is from a former student of hers says, "I have reluctantly prohibited myself from saying certain things in class, also in fear of sounding politically incorrect." And that her 8th grade English teacher taught her classmates for the first 2 weeks about pretty much how awful white men are. The school hasn't gotten back to us, but Stengel-Plow says she hopes staff awaken and stop teaching this misguided and absolutist ideology to their students. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
A rural Nevada county passed a resolution declaring that it will defend citizens against unconstitutional acts by federal or state authorities. The declaration springs from a movement to protect Americans' constitutional freedoms.
Elko County, Nevada passed a resolution to uphold the Constitution and defy any laws, orders, or policies that go against constitutional freedoms. The resolutions declare a list of abuses that will not be tolerated, including violations of citizens' rights to worship and bear arms. County Commissioner Rex Steninger proposed the resolution in the county. He tells the Epic Times that we are slipping quickly from the republic of our founding into a dictatorship. He says that the swamp is controlling the federal government and Americans are losing their freedoms. Steninger cites the executive orders given during the pandemic as an example of unconstitutional rule. The declarations come from a movement started by retired Sheriff Richard Mack. Mack is known for opposing gun control laws that required law enforcement to run and pay for background checks. He took the case to the Supreme Court and won. Mack now leads the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. He tells the Epoch Times the people of these counties and their elected officials have had it up to here with unconstitutional dictates and mandates. He says that elected officials and law enforcement need to protect the freedoms given to Americans by the Constitution. Mack says this is the peaceful and effective solution millions of Americans have been praying for to take back America county by county and state by state. Mack says Elko County is just the beginning. Multiple sources tell the Epoch Times that other counties are seriously considering joining the movement.
Coming up, the hometown of President John Adams and President John Quincy Adams celebrates Flag Day. The town has been holding these annual parades since 1952. And Texans are asked to conserve as much energy as possible for the next week to try to prevent a power outage. That and more here on NTD News. Today is Flag Day, and people in Quincy, Massachusetts have been celebrating this day for 70 years. Let's take a look at their parade this year. NTD's Allison Lee has the story.
Thousands of people gathered on the streets of Quincy, Massachusetts to watch the 70th annual Flag Day parade on Saturday night. The city has been one of the earliest to hold parades for Flag Day.
This is a night that really brings the city together. Remind us all that we're under one flag. It's a great country, and we should celebrate that.
Flag Day celebrates June 14, 1777, when the Second Continental Congress passed a resolution designating the creation and design of the U.S. flag. President Woodrow Wilson declared this day a national holiday in 1916.
Honestly, this is one of the biggest events of the year here in the city of Quincy. It's super important for the whole community to be able to come out and celebrate together. So yeah, this is perfect. It's gorgeous weather, and as you can see, there's a lot of people already out, so we're all really excited.
Quincy is the hometown of the second president, John Adams, and his son, the sixth president, John Quincy Adams. Residents there are very proud of their Flag Day traditions and the rich history of their town.
This is my 30th year as Uncle Sam and 30th year in the parade. And my grandson here, this is his 14th year coming down from New Hampshire. And this is her 9th year, right? 9th year from New Hampshire.
Because of the pandemic, the city had to cancel the parade last year and limit it to a drive-through event. Residents are excited to be able to publicly celebrate Flag Day once again this year.
I think it's especially important this year because of the pandemic. You know, people need some happiness. People need some social interaction. So this is excellent event. Excellent event.
Glad to be back. Yeah, glad to see Quincy back. Almost normal again.
The celebrations on Saturday night ended with a fireworks show over Quincy Bay. Allison Lee, NTD News.
And today is not only the birthday of the U.S. flag, it is also the 246th birthday of the U.S. Army. The Continental Congress approved the creation of an armed force for all the colonies in 1775. It was close to 2 months after colonists fired the first shot of the American Revolution and a year before the Declaration of Independence. And in Ohio, dash cam video showed how Painesville police rescued a 4-year-old boy who was found floating unresponsive in a fish pond. The little boy was reported missing by his parents on Saturday morning. Police began searching the Painesville Recreational Park pond after receiving a call about a possible body floating there. Police dashcam revealed how officers spotted the boy, pulled him out of the water, and began performing CPR. The Painesville Fire Department also performed life-saving procedures on the young boy. He was taken to Tri-Pont Medical Center and is reported to be in stable condition. It's believed the child must have slipped out of a family member's residence and wandered into the park, where he later fell in the pond. New York City is set to vote for a new mayor soon. With the city's primary election just 8 days away, a video of a candidate's controversial comments has surfaced. NTD's Arian Pazdar has more.
New York City public schools are going back to in-person learning, and students don't even have to wear masks anymore. But now a new video clip suggests that mayoral candidate Eric Adams actually wants to go back to remote learning and significantly reduce the number of teachers. But he says this clip is highly misleading.
What's up, brother?
The clip, which is 20 seconds long, is from a February interview. Adams says it should be noted that the entire interview wasn't published, only an excerpt. Adams can be seen saying that with remote learning, one single teacher can take on huge classrooms.
You could have one great teacher that's in one of our specialized high schools to teach 300 to 400 students who are struggling in math.
But Adams tells NTD he misstated up the numbers he got from his educational experts.
Even in the op-ed portion of my summer program, the briefing document said is 30 to 40 students.
Adams and his campaign are filing a complaint against the person who published the clip. They claim the man is an operative for one of the other candidates. Aaron Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Texans are being asked to conserve electricity as much as possible for the rest of the week until Friday, June 18th. That's to prevent a power outage after record usage and forced generation outages. A graph on the ERCOT homepage shows the demand is almost reaching the available capacity. If it overpowers the supply, there could be issues. So they're asking homeowners to turn off non-essential appliances and lights, close blinds and drapes, and set their thermostat to 78 degrees or higher. Businesses and large consumers are also given tips on how to save energy. The VP of Grid Planning and Operations says this is unusual for this early in the summer season and that they're looking into why it's happening. Which is more productive, working from home or from the office? Well, a new study says even if you work more hours at home, you'll actually get less done. NTD's Phil Zoe has the details.
If you're working from home, you might be spending more time doing less work and being less productive. That's according to a new study from the University of Chicago. It says hours working from home increased by 30%, but the amount of work done remained the same. That means productivity fell by 20%.
You find yourself wanting to work more hours because you think you're going to be getting more done, realize that the quality of your work is going to go down, you're not going to be as productive.
The remote work manager says there could be many distractions at home.
People were having their little children in the background, so of course they had much more distraction.
A family, kids, a house to take care of, other responsibilities, it's easier to get distracted.
Become obsessed with like a recipe and try to cook lunch for like 4 hours and like nothing gets done.
But some people prefer to work from home.
Faxing, copying, those are kind of like eliminated when you're home. You don't have to deal with so many people at the same time.
You're able to be on your own schedule and without people distracting you and office politics.
But Dr. Carol Lieberman told NTD News being stuck at home could bring many problems.
You're very close to the refrigerator, you're close to the alcohol cabinet, you're close to the television, you're close to a lot of distractions and a lot of things that can be harmful.
She says humans need to socialize in person in order to grow mentally and intellectually.
We need that human interaction to feel appreciated, to stay on top of our toes.
Remote worker Amir agrees.
Having a routine and being able to, go from point A to point B allows your mind to continue evolving, and coming into contact with people every day is also a great way to help your mind grow.
Many are looking forward to returning to the office.
Like camaraderie, colleagues.
I appreciate the commute, being around people, the socialization of the workplace.
It's like exercising. You're in a class and somebody's saying, let's go, or you're sitting there by yourself with the TV going, ha, 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 ha.
Oh, pardon me, I was a little distracted. Almost forgot I was at work. Perhaps it's a good thing people are starting to return to the office. Phil Zoe, NTD News, New York.
A seat on a spaceship ride with billionaire Jeff Bezos sold for $28 million over the weekend. The live auction sale concluded a month-long bidding process for the sightseeing trip ahead of aerospace company Blue Origin's maiden voyage next month.
I have $7 million right here. Look at 7-1. Now,
just how much would you pay for a space ride with the world's richest man?
7 million, 3 now is the time.
7 minutes into a live auction on Saturday, one bidder won that privilege for $28 million.
And that is sold $28 million to number 107.
That concluded a month-long bidding process for a sightseeing trip on rocket company Blue Origin's maiden voyage along with founder Jeff Bezos. The identity of the winner was not immediately disclosed.
It's about 10 times higher in altitude than your normal commercial jet flights.
The sale illustrates a potential market for private commercial space travel. In the month leading up to Saturday's live auction, Blue Origin said more than 6,000 people from at least 140 countries submitted bids. Investment banking company UBS estimates a $3 billion annual space tourism market by 2030. That's with optimism that space travel will become mainstream as technology is proven and costs fall. The prospect is fueling a race among tech giants to be the first to travel beyond Earth's atmosphere. Bezos is competing against the likes of fellow billionaires Elon Musk's SpaceX and Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic, though one source familiar with the matter says Branson just might steal Bezos' thunder. That source says Branson could possibly be on a test flight to the edge of space over the July 4th weekend. Bezos and Saturday's winner are not expected to take off from West Texas until July 20.
NASA is launching Northrop Grumman's Minotaur rocket into space on Tuesday morning. Residents on the East Coast, weather permitting, will be able to view the rocket as it travels to space. The rocket is set to lift off at 7 a.m. Eastern Time from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility on Virginia's East Coast. The rocket will carry 3 national security payloads for the National Reconnaissance Office. If you won't be on the East Coast to view it in the sky, live coverage of the countdown for liftoff is scheduled to begin at 6:30 a.m. on the NASA Wallops YouTube page. Coming up, a California zoo announces a plaque commemorating a 6-year-old. The boy was a victim of a road rage incident on the freeway. And Californians are eager for life to return to normal, and lockdowns will soon be lifted. Governor Newsom says he has a plan, but it comes with a big price tag. More in just a moment here on NTD News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Monday morning, the Orange County Zoo announced it is dedicating a memorial plaque to a 6-year-old boy who was killed in a road rage shooting on a California freeway last month. Orange County police arrested 2 suspects last week. Both are currently held on a $1 million bond.
The OC Zoo commemorated the 6-year-old Aiden Leos by announcing a plaque in his memorial on Monday morning. The family said the zoo was Aiden's favorite place to visit.
We just want to take this moment to allow it to be a joyous occasion and just honor Aiden's spirit of kindness and graciousness and to be happy. And I can't think of a better place than here at Irvine Park where he enjoyed many visits.
We're really glad that we'll be able to honor him and also look for justice for other people that have had violence.
Aiden was killed around 8 a.m. May 21st while strapped in his booster seat. His mother was driving him to kindergarten on Costa Mesa Freeway 55. She was involved in a road rage incident with two people in a white Volkswagen station wagon. Investigators believe that the suspected driver drove behind the victim's car and the passenger allegedly fired a shot into the back of the vehicle. The bullet went through the rear trunk, striking Aiden's belly. Aiden was rushed to Children's Hospital of Orange County, where he was pronounced dead.
To keep the memory of Aiden Leos alive and to let other families in Orange County know that if you are a victim of a violent crime, the community has got your back and we are going to try to find the perpetrators of those crimes.
Aiden's death led to an outpouring of concern from the communities. A reward of more than $500,000 was offered for any information leading to an arrest in the case. After a weeks-long manhunt, two suspects, Marcus Anthony Ares, 24, and Win Lee, 23, were identified and arrested at their apartment on June 6th. Police also recovered the gun and vehicle involved in the incident. Orange County DA office says the suspected shooter Ares could face up to 40 years to life in prison if convicted.
After more than a year of lockdowns due to the pandemic, California is about to reopen. The governor has laid out a plan of action, but it comes with large government spending. Here's NTD's Cynthia Kai with the details.
On Monday morning, California Governor Gavin Newsom announced a spending plan for California. The state is set to reopen on June 15. His $100 billion spending initiative is called the California Comeback Plan. It includes a variety of incentives to increase vaccination, along with investments in health investment, tourism, education, housing, and homelessness.
Tomorrow, 10 individuals in the state of California, 22 million eligible Californians, 10 individuals will receive $1.5 million each. Those that have been vaccinated with at least one dose are eligible. You're still eligible if you get vaccinated today.
The state is also partnering with Taco Bell, Chipotle, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Golden State Warriors to give free items or discounts to incentivize vaccinations. Governor Newsom stated that California will be changing CCP virus, also known as COVID-19, guidelines.
No more physical distancing requirements, no more caps on occupancy, moving beyond the blueprint, aligning with the CDC on masks mandates. That all goes into effect midnight tonight in the state of California.
Governor Newsom explained that the state of California will not enforce vaccine passports. Businesses will have the option to establish their own requirements for vaccine verifications following California's reopening. Cynthia Kai, NTD News, California.
Hackers have stolen 26 million login credentials from websites like Amazon, Facebook, Google, and Twitter. That's according to cybersecurity firm NordLocker. NordLocker says the Trojan-type malware infiltrated more than 3 million Windows computers over a 2-year period. The hackers made off with emails or usernames and associated passwords. Most of the stolen login credentials were for Google, Facebook, and Amazon. So how did the hackers get the information? NordLocker says the malware was transmitted by email and pirated software, including illegal versions of Adobe Photoshop and cracked games. California's Bay Area has a new attraction for children and the young at heart alike, Lego. The state's first indoor Legoland is officially opened. Here's NTD's Eileen Ang with more at its grand opening.
2, 1.
California's first Legoland Discovery Center officially opened inside the Great Mall in San Jose. It is 31,000 square feet. One attraction is a display of landmarks built of Lego.
This is Miniland. It is a miniature version of the San Francisco Bay Area in Lego bricks. So behind me to my right is the San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge and the Palace of Fine Arts. And as it transitions to nighttime, we can see the lights light up. And here is City Hall. There's the Transamerica Pyramid. And further down, you can even see the Hoover Tower and the Chase Center.
It took a team over a year and 1.5 million Lego bricks to build. If people look closely, there are different stories and themes happening within the miniature city.
There's a couple of guys riding a dragon in one part of town. There's a marching band that is running into like a dog that's chasing after a pork chop. And these change too. So, you know, a scene that's there one week might not be there the next week.
There is also a 4D movie theater with special effects, 12 themed build stations, a laser maze, a creative workshop, and more.
The Discovery Center is really built for families with kids 3 through 10, and it's all about interactive play. It's something that mom and dad can come out with the kids and actually build and play with them, and not something that you're sitting at home watching. It's really a hands-on fun experience.
They are often surprised by kids' creativity when building things with their imagination.
I'm building a car. What type of car, do you know? A helicopter car. A helicopter car, wow. It's a car that I'm going to put a spinner up here.
The father and daughter were building Lego cars and racing them to see which design goes faster.
One of the really unique things about children with Lego is the way that, at least with my daughter, the way that she thinks through what she's creating. It's very much a story-first experience. So a little bit less on the art side, but a little bit more about the story and what she's trying to portray in her build, which is it's really fun to see that creativity come out through her building style.
The Lego workshop helps kids get started, then lets their imagination take them away.
One kid, he didn't like snails at all. And I told him we were building a snail, he was unhappy. But by the end of it, he really liked his rocket-powered skateboard snail.
They currently cap the capacity under 50%. People are asked to reserve online since tickets sell out weeks in advance. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
Coming up, a report sent to the U.S. warns of an imminent radiological threat posed by a Chinese nuclear power plant. The nuclear project is jointly owned by China's French partner. The French company asks for U.S. permission for tech support, while China denies the accusation. A nuclear power plant in China might have leaked radioactive materials at dangerous levels, and a French company warned and sought help from the U.S. The Biden administration doesn't regard it as a critical event, but is keeping an eye on it as it develops.
The U.S. government is assessing a report of a leak at a Chinese nuclear power plant. The assessment has been going on for a week, and it started after a French company that partly owns and operates the plant warned about an imminent radiological threat. The warning says that China was raising the radiation limit to avoid having to shut it down. CNN first reported on it based on a letter from the French company to the U.S. Energy Department. China Guangdong Nuclear Power Group owns 70% of the power plant in question, the Taishan nuclear power project in South China's Guangdong province. French power group EDF owns the rest. An EDF division called Framatome helps operate the plant. Framatome sent the alarm to the Biden administration on June 8th. A source told CNN that the White House believes the facility is not yet at a crisis level. The Taishan nuclear power plant responded in a memo on Sunday that regular monitoring data shows the Taishan station and its surrounding environment are normal. Multiple sources confirmed with CNN that the U.S. only got involved in the situation because Framatome asked for assistance. The French company asked for permission from the U.S. to provide technical support with the issue. There's not yet any comment from Chinese safety authorities because Monday is a public holiday in China. But a major Chinese media outlet reprinted an article on Monday accusing CNN of spreading rumors about the Chinese nuclear plant.
Israel has a new leader. That's after parties across the political spectrum came together to form a coalition. But what impact will this have on American-Israeli relations, and will this affect the ceasefire with the terrorist group Hamas? NTD speaks with a former Israeli mayor to find out.
After 12 years, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is out. Israel's parliament approved a new government led by hard-right nationalist Naftali Bennett on Sunday. Parliament decided in a vote of confidence by a razor-thin margin of 60 to 59. Bennett's new government is made up of a coalition consisting of 8 widely varying parties, from the hard-right, center, left, and most notably Ra'am, an Islamic party.
He is going to have his arm behind his back.
David Rubin is the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and author of the new book, Confronting Radicals: What America Can Learn from Israel. He says such a diverse coalition will make leading difficult for Bennett.
He's not going to be able to accomplish anything that he wants to accomplish, any of the right-wing goals that he promised during the campaign. He's not going to be able to do any of them.
And with only 60 of the 120 seats, the coalition doesn't quite make up a majority in Parliament either. Despite the widely differing opinions within the coalition, Rubin says there's a few things almost everyone firmly agrees upon.
When it comes to Iran, Israel is united. You go across the almost the entire political spectrum, from the far right all the way almost to the far left, and you will find unity.
He also thinks Israel would be united in standing up against President Biden if he tried to appease Iran. This comes as the Biden administration lifted sanctions on some Iranian officials and companies last week, and speculation that the U.S. and Iran may resume conversations on the nuclear deal. Rubin expects the Biden administration will be cozier to Bennett's government due to its more centrist left makeup. Because of this, he thinks the U.S. will try to pressure the Israeli government into negotiating with the Palestinians to have a Palestinian state. But he doesn't believe this will materialize because both the left and right have veto power. Rubin has another suggestion.
When it comes to Iran, I suggest that President Biden adopt the approach of the Trump administration and to stand up against Iran, to not remove the sanctions, but strengthen the sanctions and help Israel and work with Israel in bringing down that horrible extreme Islamic regime. And if he does that, I can guarantee him that people in Israel, on the right, in the center, and on the left will be very pleased and will strengthen his hand in that policy.
As far as Hamas and the ceasefire goes, Rubin doesn't believe this change in governance will trigger an attack on Israel. That's because it's not in Hamas's interest to break the ceasefire. He says the terrorist organization is likely taking this time to refill their weaponry. Reporting by Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Coming up, the UK postpones the end of lockdown. Londoners react to the news that it could be over a month until things return to normal. And a French baker living in Germany specializes in all kinds of festive pastries and breads, perfect for fans of Europe's Euro 2021 Championship soccer tournament. That and more here on NTD News.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here, and if you're on Medicare, this is important. You're now entitled to eliminate copays and get dental care, dentures, eyeglasses, prescription coverage, in-home aids, unlimited transportation, and home-delivered meals, all at no additional cost. Plus, your zip code may have coverage with the Give Back benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every month.
I called to get dental, transportation, meals, and the Give Back benefit.
With this virus situation, I called to get everything I'm entitled to. I couldn't believe I was missing out on so many benefits.
With the uncertainty of the virus, you need to get everything you're entitled to. Millions of people have trusted the Medicare Coverage Helpline. You can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-764-1930. That's 1-800-764-1930 now.
Britain's Prime Minister has delayed reopening by a month, citing concerns of a more infectious virus variant. Reopening is now pushed back to July 19th. NTD's Neil Woodrow has the details.
Prime Minister Johnson announces the latest on the roadmap easing of restrictions, with the final lifting previously earmarked for just 1 week away on June 21st. Earlier reports indicated that limits on numbers for sports events, pubs and cinemas were likely to remain in place, with nightclubs staying closed and people encouraged to keep up social distancing and working from home. The expected move was met with fury by some Tory MPs, with a vote this month expected to lead to a Conservative backbench rebellion. But the Health Minister favours a delay, telling Sky News with a delay of 1 month, another 10 million second vaccine doses could be given across the UK. Some scientists also defended the proposal, saying the rapid spread of the Indian variant risks a substantial third wave of infection. But any delay causes a huge setback to many businesses, particularly in the hospitality sector, who hope for a full summer's business to recoup some of the losses of the past year. Londoners told us they have mixed feelings about the delay. The last year has been bad for this gentleman's business. He says his employees rely on him, and today's news adds to his problems.
It's not depend on me, it's depend about government, just job centers. Universal credit is nothing for us because we're building something. Now we lose everything, so it's bad for us. It's a very, very difficult time, but we cannot do nothing. We just have to wait until the government decides to do better.
This gentleman says the government is in a difficult position.
If they do something, they're blamed. If they don't do something, they're blamed. And I think it's a far safer option for all of us to prolong it for a while. I know the economy's going to be hit, but it's the best thing. So.
On Sunday, nearly 7,500 new virus cases were reported, over 2,000 more than the previous Sunday. Neil Woodrow, NTD News.
Swiss voters on Sunday rejected several environmental laws, including one that would have made Switzerland the first country in Europe to ban synthetic pesticides. Another one would have reduced pesticide usage by redirecting subsidies to farmers who use them. Supporters argue that pesticides are linked to health risks, while opponents claim a ban would lead to more expensive food and greater dependence on imports. Voters also opposed a law intended to cut carbon emissions by increasing a surcharge on petrol and imposing a levy on flight tickets. And a French baker in Germany is celebrating the start of this year's European Soccer Championships. He's making baked goods that represent the tournament matches. NTD's Colin Frederickson has more.
Frenchman Ludovic Gerbois has been baking in Germany for over 15 years. And even though he's injecting a little sweetness into the tournament for fans from all countries, he's aiming his culinary focus at France and Germany. And his baked goods reflect that.
I like to bake and look at everything a little. Part is French, part is German. I take what I get. It is all very mixed up. Parts have a French idea and German baking traditions, or a German idea and French baking traditions. I like to mix it up a little.
There are soft French eclairs with tricolor icing in the French or German team colors. There are fruit tarts with foreign flags, and crisp German breads with the Euro cup cooked into the crust. There are even French baguettes baked in the colors of the German flag, red, gold, and black. It reflects Gerbois' torn allegiance during the tournament.
From a soccer point of view, I think France will win. But then I'm not that certain because the German team is very motivated. But the French team has just now shown what is expected from them. I think after France scores the first goal, they will lock down their defense. But the game is open.
Whether France will meet with sweet victory in their first match will be decided on Tuesday when they face Germany in Munich. The game is taking place only a half hour away from Gerbois' bakery. The tournament includes teams representing 24 European nations.
I hope France will win, but Belgium has become a very good team recently. England is a bit of an outsider. Portugal, I don't know really. Maybe not this year. Of course, I am hoping it's France. Germany is also a favorite, but I'm cheering for France.
The tournament continues until July 11th. It features 51 matches across 11 countries. They are taking place from as far as Seville, Spain, in Western Europe, all the way to Baku, Azerbaijan, the country that straddles the border between Eastern Europe and Western Asia.
Sharks in Malaysian waters are suffering from an unknown skin disease. Early reports suggest a possible cause.
Marine biologists are investigating a mystery skin disease afflicting white-tip reef sharks in Malaysia. Early reports suggest rising sea temperatures could be to blame. Back in April, pictures of one of the sharks of what appeared to be spots and lesions on its head went viral on social media. The images were taken by an underwater photographer off Sabah State on Borneo Island. Soon after, divers at nearby Sipadan Island and a team of experts began seeing the skin disease in every group of sharks they encountered. The team puts it down to the sea surface temperature, which they say had risen to 29.5 degrees Celsius in May, a degree higher than in 1985. Davies Austin Speegee is a senior marine biologist with the conservation group Reef Guardian.
The geographical location of Sipadan in the middle of nowhere, with limited and controlled human activities, means that the marine water quality there is not affected by domestic wastewater and other land-based sources.
Last month, the research team tried but failed to capture some of the sharks to secure samples for testing. The team plans to make another attempt in July.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox. We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.